Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. As November was coming to an end, Michael Flynn gets a pardon, and he seems to get back in the game right away. So part of me is wondering, were those pardons designed as a quid pro quo for these guys? Like, okay, you'll get the pardons if you'll set up my Stop the Steal event or help me arrange it? Or was it always part of the plan that they'd be off and then they'd continue with their work for him? Do you think that there's a possibility there that there might be potential crime there in that he's doing some sort of quid pro quo for a pardon?
Well, when it comes to Flynn, I think you got to go back several more years into his history, and you can find him doing all kinds of dirty things in this space. So, I think that's just who he is, and yeah, he's going to be loyal to the boss, of course. And there's a cult-like aspect to a lot of this now. It's not just QAnon. It's kind of there's reverence for Trump and this fealty that's paid to Trump. It's like Flynn. What choice did he have? There was no choice. He's not going to. He'd sworn allegiance to QAnon. He's not going to go off and ride off into the sunset.
He had to do something, and he knew the job. So he shows up on Newsmax, coincidentally, on December the 17th, and he starts talking about martial law.
People out there talking about martial law, it's like it's something that we've never done. Martial law has been instituted 64 times, Greg. So I'm not calling for that. We have a constitutional process. We clearly have a constitutional process. I think you highlighted some of that in your previous segment. That has to be followed.
We have a lot of corrupt things that happen when they don't fight. One thing I've learned about Republicans, they have some difficulties, but you know a difficulty that they don't have? They never forget. They never forget. And people are going to find that out because we have to go, and we have to go all the way, and that's what's happening. And you watch what happens over the next couple of weeks. You watch what's going to come out. Watch what's going to be revealed.
A lot going on. As you guys know, your audience knows, and I think that we really in the next couple of days, I think we're going to see some extraordinary historical moments. The truth is going to come out. Donald Trump will continue to be the president of the United States for the next 4 years. There's no doubt in my mind. When I'm asked on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the scale that you put that Trump will be the next president, I say 10, without a doubt. People out there talking.
So, and that's you missed the dates there. But
that was a great clip.
How did that guy get to be a general? I mean, did he graduate high school?
I don't know if he did. He must have. But you're right. It's kind of amazing that he has. And now his brother just got a big promotion as well this last week. Yeah. So there you go. But I mean, you saw. So January, the dates were sort of cut off there. But that was January the 4th, 2 days before, when Trump was saying lots of big things to come. And then January the 5th, Flynn is building on that. And then again on Alex Jones, he's predicting that Trump is still going to be the president. And this is obviously designed to incite the crowd to show up on the 6th. So again, we're seeing in the media vehicle, we're seeing this Alex Jones as being sort of the conduit to which they're speaking to this community. How big a deal is Alex Jones in this whole thing?
He's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there. He's your field marshal or whatever. I mean, Jones, just stepping back, broadly speaking, I mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene as being like a former Infowars person, but Posobiec, Cernovich, I mean, the whole crew has cycled. Laura Loomer, wasn't she at some point? Yeah. I mean, if you pick a name, you're going to find them attached to Infowars at some point.
And so who's creating that? Who's funding Infowars?
We need some more reporting on that.
Yeah.
We need some more reporting on that, but I also think that
trying.
I think Infowars made some good money. I mean, I think it was extremely highly trafficked. I mean, that is one thing that's true.
Yes.
It was when Andrew Anglin of the Daily Stormer would talk about his influences and stuff like that, he would sometimes talk about just like, Alex Jones and just like how he wanted to kind of be Alex Jones. And I think he looks at his little Bitcoin donations and everything else he gets as a kind of like his version of being a Nazi, a more explicitly Nazified Jones. But I just say that like Jones is a perfect example of somebody who just fed off of the runoff of Trump's celebrity in such a major way. It's the reason why he got in trouble for everything, I think, regarding Sandy Hook and all that stuff, is because this guy became a mega celebrity. And, that took him from out of the underground and into the mainstream. And he's kind of in this limbo now where he doesn't have a platform the way he did before on social media, but is as close to a household name as you get in far-right extremism, right? So, when you see him marching around, I think there was one time he was flanked by the Proud Boys at one of these Stop the Steal events. Yeah. He might have been on the 6th itself. I can't recall. He shows up at all these things with that Infowars tank that they have. I recall him being out on the streets during the summer, during the Black Lives Matter events, baiting people, kind of getting people to throw things at his thing. He has been central. He showed up at the Richmond, the Second Amendment rally. Remember that?
That's
scared
right.
Everybody, understandably. Yeah. He showed up at that. He makes these big shows where he comes, and that sort of is like, announces that this is a moment for us as part of this hard right authoritarian anti-democratic movement. When he shows up, it is a signal that this is something that people need to pay attention to. That's
a great segue to this clip. So this is January the 5th, the night before the insurrection at Freedom Plaza in D.C.
My pleasure to introduce a man. It's my honor to introduce a man who was the genesis in many ways of this second American Revolution. With a movement that started with one man on public access television will tomorrow turn into millions of Americans in the streets of Washington, D.C. to take our republic back. And that man's name is Alex Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Jones. I'll tell you who I'm excited to see. It's you, the American people, unified in resistance to the New World Order. We have only begun to resist the globalists. We have only begun our fight against their tyranny. They have tried to steal this election in front of everyone. And as I told them 20 years ago, I tell them again, I don't know how this is going to end, but if they want to fight, they better believe they've got one.
I mean, that's just chilling on every level.
I try to imagine that, imagine that being said in a foreign language and just the body language and the sound, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also the ludicrousness of these guys thinking that they're saving a republic when they really are the most entitled people in the country. It seems insane that they're out there saying that.
He's talking about taking back the republic. It's never about defending democracy. And there's a bunch of coded anti-Semitism right there in the word, using the term globalist. And Alex Jones has been notorious for that for a long time. And, I saw a video of him recently from 10 years ago where he's using similar language about, essentially an insurgency that is coming. He has ties to the Oath Keepers that go back 10 years. This guy has been an on-ramp to far-right extremism for a long, long time. And when it comes to this insurrection, he was there from day 2 of when these Stop the Steal protests started. It was November 4th was the first one in Phoenix, and then it turned into a 3-night thing. Alex Jones showed up on November 5th with his bullhorn, and he's talking about, hunting down the Democrats in their bunkers, likening every liberal to a Chinese communist, preaching this 1776 revolutionary rhetoric. And this goes back years. These guys have been talking in these tones. So, this is not, this attack on the Capitol has to be seen not just as something that kind of materialized in the past few months or even under the Trump administration. This has deep roots in the extremism community in the United States, and it all led up to this.
You described it as a vast right-wing conspiracy, and it really does seem like that's what it's been. And it's not something that's going to go away with the absence of Trump.
I think so. I think the big thing, too, is that as the president of the United States, okay, so then let's go here. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, not only are these his friends and his running buddies, and the Alex Jones, Roger Stone connection, Roger Stone also did that whole Brooks Brother riot around an election before and got it to stop. And that was sort of that's actually the genesis of Stop the Steal. And the difference between, there's many, many differences that have to do with the democratic process between the certification that was happening on January 6th and the recount happening in Florida, back in 2000. But here's the deal. Where they're very similar is that they're and where I think Roger Stone really fed everybody this idea originally, or was at least the sort of creative founder of it, is that they were single point locations from which where something was going to be happening around the election to where you could gather everybody. Mm-hmm. So because Joe Biden won in such a landslide and he won so many states, they weren't going to stage, and maybe they tried to. Maybe you guys saw some of that traffic. I don't know. I didn't see it. But where they, it was much easier to get everybody to a central location, especially one where the president would be anyway, and he could come out and talk to them, where they could do their Stop the Steal. And that was January 6th. And that kind of, picking that moment where Mike Pence and all the electors are already in and they're just sort of officially certifying it, it presented itself as an opportunity to have a single point, a single place. It was the Capitol. They could storm the Capitol, which they've been talking about for fucking decades, right? They could have this moment. It was almost as if it presented itself to them as this perfect opportunity to gather everybody around, just as what Roger Stone had done in 2000, a single point opportunity in Florida to gather a bunch of people around and use the force of the crowd to pressure something to stop. And then in that delay. So that's what I believe the senators and the Congress people who were inside, that coordination, that's what I think that coordination was give us the time, give us the delay so that out front we can create everybody that can see all these tens of thousands of people, and it will, what can Congress do other than stop it? Well, they didn't do that. That's not that's not going to happen. So then it pushed that surge. And Donald Trump pushed that surge. Mike Pence isn't doing it. He's tweeting at them. They're reading the tweets, and in they go. And there's probably some advanced shit going in there too. But that's in terms of what we saw on TV. So that's my theory. It's just my theory. But
almost they wanted to use the event to start their movement. It wasn't so much like
to start it was a galvanizing.
It wasn't
event.
But it wasn't so much about stopping the vote or the count. It was about launching a movement, and it seemed like a good way to do it for them. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't disagree with any of this, but
how
in 2000,
bloody would that have been? How bloody could that have been? Is sort of the question I have for you guys. And then go ahead, Luke. We'll get to that.
No, I was just going to say that, and Zev was getting at it there, but in 2000, that was an actual recount was underway, and they managed to trip that up a little bit. Here, the election was over. And, it's a formality to certify these electoral college votes. So what are you actually seeking to accomplish by amassing a mob of angry, delusional people and inciting them to violence when the election has already been decided? You're not trying to stop the election at that point. You're trying to do something else. And, that's what's truly frightening here. I think
so.
So something I noticed also about the collection of people you had on that still.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all people who the stakes just could not be higher for these people. They've either been accused of crimes in some cases, or they've been convicted of crimes and pardoned or not pardoned, right? This cluster of people, and there are also other lawsuits and all kinds of other stuff floating around with all of these people.
Yeah,
right.
They're not people that have much options. They don't have many options for their careers.
Right, and they're also accustomed to getting away with just breathtaking bullshit.
Right.
Right, which is something.
So true.
No, it's something I think about a lot when with that Pazovic series that I've been doing. It's just like, how can this guy with the Hunter Biden laptop? I don't want to get off on a tangent there. He was sharing tweets that were like, "Get ready for October," and it was like dinosaurs and lasers. Like, he obviously knew that they were going to do something at a particular day. I mean, he's been so accustomed to pulling off bullshit, from Macron leaks to the Roy Moore stuff to op to the Caravan op and all these different ops that they did, Pizzagate, whatever. That he's just like, hey, about to do an op. Who wants some of this? And it's like, all those guys. That's one example as a way in because it's very familiar to me and whatever. All those guys.
Same thing with Proud Boys, Mike. Because you were one of you was asking earlier in the program about, how could the Proud Boys just get away with this? Or what were these people thinking? Is it a LARP? Is it a LARP that's become reality? I think that, yes, in many ways that's true, but also the Proud Boys were allowed to travel across state jurisdictions, through state jurisdictions for years to commit violence with the declared intent of committing violence. And they were allowed to do it. People.
Portland. Portland is there's way more Antifa than Proud Boys in the streets of Portland. It is, this is not like steakhouses and country bars. This is Portland,
right?
And all of a sudden there's a full out war on the streets of this. It's like turf invasion.
When you say they were allowed to cross state lines, that was because Trump allowed them to, or you're saying that there was other reasons?
No, I think law enforcement was 100% aware of the Proud Boys and the Proud Boys being a violent, organized gang. And I've heard that they're trafficking drugs across state lines and weapons across state lines. And this is where that whataboutism that you hear all the time from the political right just completely falls apart, because the Proud Boys, there are multiple felons in among them who are committing violence, who would be on social media saying, we're going to go beat the hell out of, this leftist or this Antifa person, or maybe just some, hapless, passerby who they came across. And the system kind of looked the other way, permitted it. And this is what you see when you cover far-right extremism and white supremacy. You see how baked in kind of this privilege is into the system. And so what Mike was saying about that collection of really, truly some of the more nefarious people that our society and government has produced, just thinking they can get away with whatever at this point, because they've gotten away with, just like Trump, they've gotten away with everything their whole lives up until someone decides enough. And I do definitely think, to go back to the violence point that you were raising before, there is no way someone who is paying attention to, not just the conversation online before the attack on the Capitol, but all these different groups, all these different propagandists, what they're talking about for years. There's no way somebody who's paying attention to that could think that violence was not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
Anybody who incited that mob knew that violence was an almost certain outcome.
I just want to interject one thing.
The president of the United States is getting briefings telling him this. He's the president of the United States. It's not like he's not getting people briefing him, coming in and telling him what's going to happen. So that's where he can't even say, I didn't know. I was watching it on TV like all of you. It's like, you get the most highly classified, the best fucking intelligence and the best briefings and law enforcement of anybody on the fucking planet. of any nation. You're the president of the United States. If anybody knows, it's him, especially because these are his buddies and his kid.
Well,
it's just
people
violence had already happened, though. I just want to point out that the Stop the Steal had already been violent. There was that November 14th thing in Washington D.C. And Trump had already
December 1 as well, Mike. Multiple stabbings. Hundreds of Proud Boys marching in formation through the streets of D.C., attacking people. This is the stand back and stand by group, right? From the debate.
So you've got the,
Trump did like a flyover or something. Like he was out there like, and then Kayleigh McEnany was out there being like, we love our, our fans and whatever. I mean, it was really it should not have surprised anyone because it was already violent.
Yeah, and so you've got Roger Stone, who works for Donald Trump. I mean, you can't forget that. He works for Donald Trump. That's who he works for his campaign and has for many years. He's organizing all of this with this guy Ali Alexander, and then you've got Alex Jones, who's working with Roger Stone to organize it all and foment it, and Michael Flynn, who worked for Trump as his national security advisor before he had to be fired, and again has been working for him for many years. All of these people are coordinating this event. So obviously Trump knew what was going on. I mean, that's going to be the battle next week, I guess, in the impeachment trial is, did he really know everything? Or did it stop at Stone and Alex Jones, or was it just some sort of organic event? It's going to be very hard for them to say that Trump didn't know. I mean, clearly he knew.
Yeah, there's some more reporting that's coming out about that now, and there will be some more soon about these, you all know this very well, but the way a mafia organization works is that the big boss often doesn't have to issue the direct command. It's just sort of, hey, it wouldn't be nice if this, some happened over here, somebody took care of that, and it's these underlings, these intermediaries who are often communicating and orchestrating, and but some of those intermediaries and underlings, I think, are like one step away from the president, just like they were in the Russia investigation.
And his personal attorney is making sure everybody knows what his goal is. What does he want? He wants to stop the steal.
Right. Right. It's simple as that. And then you've got,
He's a dumb mob boss because he tells everybody what he wants. He puts it on a T-shirt and sells it from his campaign office. Stop the steal, everybody. Oh, show up for my event.
But it's worked for him. He still makes money off everything.
Frank Costello is a little smarter than this. Yeah.
And then you've got Chris Miller, who's the acting Secretary of Defense at the time, saying, the National Guard can't bring any riot gear and can't be seen to be interacting with these patriots as they're protesting, basically giving them a green light and taking away the National Guard's normal chain of command operations in terms of what they could order them to do that day. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, just looking at it from the outside, that Trump was really involved in every aspect of this, but it does also touch the military and does also touch the top brass at the military and the membership as well, both the veterans and the current serving members. So we're almost out of time. I wanted to play one last clip, which was, again, our friends Alex Jones and Ali Alexander, but it seems to not be loading, so I'm going to wait for that. I'll go around and ask you guys what you think the impeachment trial will deliver next week, but also the impact hard right insurgency is going to have impact that's going to have going forward. And I'll start with you, Michael.
Well, I mean, I don't know what type of case is being assembled against Trump, and I just hope that it can fill in details that we were unable to fill in now, because we are unfortunately very reliant on law enforcement and trials like these. We can only do so much, and sometimes it's very frustrating that Luke and I work for separate publications. We can only do so much that we, as reported, we want to work together on many things. But it's tough. We can only sometimes, see certain things, get little glimpses of things, and find out what in detail. Wait, how much did you say? Oh, that the security guy got paid $40,000, and then we get that little cookie, but we don't have the full story. And sometimes we require these things. So I just hope that it is not ceremonial. I hope that it's real, and that it kicks up some very, very, serious information. They make a real go of that, and they ignore the fact that so many Republicans are going to be dead set on voting a certain way that they don't, flop down. Your question about the far right, I think that we're going to be entering a stage now in which there are going to be people who seek to disrupt what they perceive to be a liberal order through terror attacks. And that's not that's not breaking news. I mean, they've already been doing that, but I think it's going to step up.
Yeah,
it's the likelihood of it stepping up is high. But also, they're going to continue to kind of silently organize together online in such a way that there is an open space for the person who is willing to take that plunge and be the authoritarian leader. And we can only just hope that person just doesn't have the chops and just can't do it. And there's all this talk scared about Tucker Carlson and stuff like that. I don't know about Tucker Carlson, to be honest with you. I mean, there are aspects of Tucker Carlson where his talk is tough, but he's very rich, very soft, right? In some ways, he can really, he can, his personal wealth and things like that can be hurt very badly by involving himself in things. I don't know. I mean, is it somebody like Ted Cruz? Is it somebody like Josh Hawley? Is it somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is even more scary because, I mean, her whatever depth perception of like her, her ability to see the world is so skewed. Yeah. But she may not be cold and calculating enough. Right. But all I know is that there will be this free-floating body that's kind of silently organizing through their resentment. The shared resentment, this grievance that they can't fully articulate. Right? Nobody knows. Nobody hasn't can explain what's the grievance. What's the grievance that brought these guys into the Capitol? They don't need insulin. They don't need. They're not looking for stimulus checks. That's not why they went in there. No. They're not. They don't want better infrastructure. The grievance is hard to define, and I think it can only be filled by this perpetual pushing of. These kind of memeing into reality, this authoritarian rule in the West, and we just got to hope that we are prepared for whoever decides to fill that void as leader.
I want to play that clip before you start, Luke, because I am curious what your thoughts are on this. This is Ali Alexander and Alex Jones at the Trump Hotel the night before, and it sort of speaks to what you're saying there, Michael, about who might jump in to fill the void.
They certify the vote here, right? We're inside. Let's not leave.
We're not crowd.
No, I'm being serious.
We're not the left. We're not going to democratize ideas.
That's how we can stop the
Listen
certification.
Listen to me.
Peaceful.
Listen to me.
It's not a bad idea.
Listen to me.
What? Peaceful sitting. That's what we'll call it.
Here we go. If the hillbillies make up all the ideas, then we're going to lose the country. So put aside your pride. Listen to me. We're going to stop the steal, but first we're going to stop the certification.
Well, it's not good to fight. It's okay to.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that?
Let's talk about it later. It's good.
Yeah. All right.
It's okay to have ideas. Everybody's fine.
Yeah.
It's an idea, man.
Just lose the republic. Ideas are fun.
Well, listen.
Anyhow, so it's kind of terrifying to think of these guys
are so weird. Ultimately,
yeah.
Let me just point out that is not from the Trump Hotel.
Okay,
that clip that is from the Atlanta Stop the Steal protest in I believe it was November. Maybe 17th.
I think you're correct to that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I'm actually citing that clip in the story that I'm writing now. And what happened before they were inside the Capitol building there in Georgia is they stood outside and Ali Alexander said, "Who's ready to storm the Capitol with me?" And Alex Jones turned to him almost under his breath and to remind him, peacefully. And then Ali Alexander, kind of smirking and laughing, said, yeah, peacefully. And so then they actually they go inside and they do their thing. And that's Nick Fuentes that you saw with them, a white nationalist.
Right.
And the hillbilly, quote unquote, who came up to him and said, "Are they certifying the vote here?" A couple things that I've observed from this clip. He approaches Alex Jones because he thinks Alex Jones is the leader of this. Alex Jones deferentially turns to Ali Alexander And then Ali shuts this guy down and said, they're certifying the vote in there. They don't want to leave. They want to shut down the vote, but it's too early because it's in Atlanta. Yeah, they don't have enough people, and they're not ready. They don't have the troops in place to make it happen. But the attitude is there. The mindset is there. The plan appears to be there. So that clip is actually revelatory in a bunch of different ways. And then I don't know if you wanted me to answer the
sure. That's the questions about the impeachment and the future of the right. Just a big question.
Because I mainly agree with everything that Michael's saying.
That, by the way.
Yeah, sure. No, they had a bunch of these events, and one of the things that blows my mind, and we've seen it in the coverage of the Capitol attack, is just they just record everything. They just live stream everything. It's like, here I'm doing the crime, and hey, mom, like I'm the realtor for you, and it's like, what?
Until the FBI comes calling,
It's this weird delusional. It goes back to that kind of, they're LARPing, but they're not. They've been trolling for so long and getting away with it. They've become what this role that they've taken on. The role is more real than their own lives. And now they're storming the Capitol and they're live streaming it. And I'm not sure if even after when the FBI comes and like throws some cuffs on them, if it registers that this is the real world that you're living in. You're not living in this, you might live online in this world of disinformation, but you're going to jail now. And let's see how that works out. But to your question about the impeachment, I'm definitely opposed to this whole, let's not impeach out of political expediency, because we need accountability more than anything in this country. We need transparency, and an impeachment trial can give us some of that. What Mike was talking about, these people who are able to get documents that we can't, who have subpoena power that we don't, we need that as a country. And I think we're all going to be very disappointed in the result, because true accountability probably is not going to come about through that process, but it's still going to be important for us to do as a country. I do not think that there is any risk of like further radicalization at this point by impeaching Trump a second time. We are dealing with an army of radicalized, crazy, anti-democratic people who want to take back the republic away from our democracy, and they will get violent to do it. And the last thing I would point out is that of all those groups that attacked the Capitol, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, Nick Fuentes' America First guys, there are these groypers running around. You had bikers for Trump, I think, in there, Cowboys for Trump. You had all these strange groups, right? But the number one, and you had the moms, but the biggest group that attacked the Capitol was the Republican base. That is the Make America Great Again movement that attacked the Capitol, and all those other groups were part of it or working with it. And that is the risk that we face now, is that your regular old kind of Fox News viewer who's already been like shoved down the rabbit hole to a point is going even deeper down now.
I want to say this about just you two as individuals and the work that you've done. Luke knows, I was deep in those chat rooms and stuff, tracking activity, tracking what these same actors that we've talked about, and some literal actors, but then memeing into life. Love that. And when I was in there a couple years back, tracing activity, it's very violent in there. It's very dark in there. It's traumatizing. It is. And I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep doing that and doing all the work on organized crime that I was doing, because it was like there was two buckets that were related in ways around the money, but two very dark worlds, and my brain couldn't handle it. And so I want the audience, and I want people to understand what it is for folks like Luke and Michael to be in that world as much as they're in that world, so that they can report on it and get us real information about these people are not just attacking our democracy. They're very violent and they're going to hurt people, and they do hurt people. And pulling those networks apart and understanding it and reporting on it means also subjecting yourself to this very violent, very cruel world of fantasists and violent felons now. And so we owe you guys a debt of gratitude. And it just needs to be said. I know what you put yourselves through, and your families, they're supporting you. And just all I have is just so much gratitude, and I'm so grateful because I couldn't do it. And the fortitude that you each have to be able to stay in this as long as you stayed in it and report and get us the real information about what's going on. It's just invaluable.
Yeah, we would never have known anything about January 6th without you guys' work. So phenomenal
stuff. Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.